For this tutorial, I will be using Premier's Anti-Pilling Everyday DK acrylic yarn in the colorway Meadow. It is a very light greenish, almost yellowish, beigeish. It's a very neutral pale green. The recommended hook size for this yarn is 4 millimeters, and we will be using a Tulip Atimo hook in 4 millimeters. It's a little bit pointier than other hooks. We will start this stitch with a slip knot, so cross the yarn over itself, grab the piece underneath and pull it through the loop. For this stitch pattern, we will be chaining in a multiple of 19, which is how many stitches it takes to complete one full ripple. And we'll be chaining in a multiple of 19, and then we'll be adding 10 stitches at the end. So for this sample, I will be chaining 48, which is 38, a multiple of 19, plus 10. So we'll chain the foundation chain, and I will meet you at the end of 48 stitches. Here is our starting foundation chain of 48. This is a 2-row repeat stitch pattern, but the first row we are going to work is not technically part of the 2-row repeat, although it is very similar. So we are going to do one setup row before starting the 2-row repeat, and we're going to do that setup row. I'm going to do it in the back bumps of the foundation chain, but if you prefer, you can obviously go through the chains directly depending on what yarn you're using and what you're more comfortable with. To start the first setup row, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That chain 3 counts as if it's a double crochet. Now, it's obviously not a double crochet, but we are going to think of it as if it is one. We're going to turn our work to where we're going to start, and we're going to place 4 double crochets in the 4th chain from the hook. So imagining those 3 chains are your first double crochet, we're going to place 4 more into that 4th chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you should have something that looks like this. Next, we're going to place another double crochet in the next chain, just 1. Now we're going to skip a chain and place a double crochet in the next chain, and we're going to do that 8 times. 1, skip a chain, 2, skip a chain, 3, skip a chain, 4, skip a chain, 5, skip a chain, 6, skip a chain, 7, skip a chain, 8. So you should have something that looks like this. You can see how it's already kind of starting to bend and curve. Now, in the very next chain after the double crochet you just placed, we are going to place 5 double crochets in that very next chain, all in the same chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to look something like this. And in the very next chain, right next to the one you just worked into, we're going to place 5 double crochets, all in that same chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you have formed your first peak. Let's put this down so you can see. So you see how it's curving. Now in the next chain, right next to the one you just worked into, we're going to place 1 double crochet, and we're going to skip a chain, and in the following chain place another double crochet, and we're going to do this 7 more times. So skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain, and then I believe this is our last one, skip a chain, double crochet into the next chain. So you should have 9 of those double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You see the wave is already starting to take shape. Now without skipping the next chain, we're going to work directly into the next chain. Right after the one you just placed a double crochet into, we're going to place 5 double crochets into that chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and into the next chain right next to it, we're going to place 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to place 1 double crochet in the chain directly next to the chain you just worked into. Just 1. And so far, let's take a look at what we have so far. Those 2 groups of 5 double crochets in those chains creates that really nice peak. It's very distinct. There's nothing subtle. And we're going to finish off this setup row by placing 1 double crochet in the next chain and skip a stitch, place a double crochet in the following chain, skip a stitch, place a double crochet in the following chain, and then skip a stitch and place a double crochet in the very last chain in the foundation row. And after the setup row, you should have something that looks like this, kind of like a worm. To start the second row, which is the first row of our 2-row repeat, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. This row is so important to create that 3D look in this ripple wave that sometimes you don't get in other waves. So to create the 3D look, we're going to single crochet at the top of that first stitch. And now what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet back post. Back post single crochet? Yeah. So we're going to, instead of going into the top of the stitch through the V like you usually would go for a single crochet, we're going to go around that first double crochet post and single crochet. So like that. And we're going to go around every single double crochet post in the previous row, just like that, around the back with a single crochet. So again, for the next stitch, instead of going into the top, which we're not going to do, we're going to go around the back of the post and single crochet. Again, find the next stitch, and we're not going into the top, we're just going around the back. So around the back and single crochet, just around that post. What that does is it pulls that post backwards and it pushes the top of the stitch forward to create that 3D look. So we're going to do every single stitch in this row that way until the last one. So let's go across for a few more stitches. Around the back, single crochet. Next, single crochet around the back post, single crochet, back post, single crochet around the back, you can already start to see it take shape a little bit here. It's a very pretty effect. We're going to do this all the way across this entire row until we get to the last stitch. So I will meet you right before we get to the last stitch. So now we're getting closer to the last stitch. We're still single crocheting around the back post, second to last stitch here. Now the last stitch is that chain 3 turning chain that we made after the foundation chain. So what we're going to do is we're going to just single crochet into the top chain of that chain 3. And that is the end of your first repeat row. Now, it's not super obvious from the video, but you can see that doing this single crochet around the back post has created a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a 3D effect. It will become much more obvious in the second repeat row. To start your third row in the stitch pattern, which is also the second repeat row, we're going to start it very similar to how we started the very first row that we did. So we're going to chain 3, which will count as the first double crochet, and we're going to turn our work. We're going to find the 4th loop from our hook, which is the first stitch, and we're going to place 4 double crochets into that first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you can tell here by now, you've probably figured out that the row ends halfway through what would be the next peak of this ripple. So we're just doing half of the ripple here. And then we're going to place a double crochet into the stitch immediately after the one you worked into. And just like the first row we did, we're going to skip a stitch and double crochet in the following stitch 8 times. So skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 3, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 4, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 5, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 6, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 6, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 7, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch 8. Should look something like this. Now we're going to place 5 double crochets into the very next stitch in the previous row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to place 5 double crochets in the very next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've just made the peak, the second peak row. We're going to place 1 double crochet in the stitch immediately after the stitch you just worked into. So we're going to skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 2, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 3, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 4, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 5, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 6, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 7, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, 8. And you should have done a total of 9 double crochets after the last cluster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now in the very next stitch, right after the one you just worked into, we're going to place 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the stitch right after, we're also going to place 5 double crochets all into that one stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5. In the stitch immediately after, we're going to place 1 double crochet, and now we're going to skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch, and skip a stitch and double crochet into the last stitch in this row. And that is the end of your second repeat row. Now on this side, it doesn't really look like anything, but if let's chain 1 and turn our work, and you can see the 3D effect on the other side. So you see that 3D ridge starting to come out here. So that is the end of the 2-row repeat. And to be honest, it doesn't really look like much right now. So let's keep going for a couple more rows just so we're all on the same page and we can see this stitch pattern start to take shape. So this row, we're going to start with a single crochet at the top of the first stitch. And this repeat row, remember, it's the single crochet around the back post of the double crochets that we did in the previous row. So instead of single crocheting into the top, we're going to single crochet around the back of all of these double crochets. Again, in the next stitch, instead of single crocheting into the top, we're going to single crochet around the back, just grabbing the entire post. And this pushes that top of the row forward and gives us that nice 3D effect. Again, the next stitch around the back of the post, single crochet. We're going to go like this all the way across the entire row. I find one of the biggest challenges with any kind of back post stitch is to make sure I'm not grabbing more than just the back post of that single stitch I'm trying to work. Sometimes it's easy because of visibility to try to insert my hook through too much yarn. So that is the thing I think that slows me down a little bit with back post crochet. But I think the effect is so pretty. And it actually does feel a little bit intuitive, right? If you have a chain space in between like these, it's actually much easier. No fiddling around looking for where to put your hook in the chain space and things like that. So we're just single crocheting around the back post of the double crochets from the previous row all the way across until we get to the end of the row. See, here it gets tricky because there are multiple double crochets in each stitch, so they're kind of bunched together, so be super careful here. So as you get to the end of this row, we're going to keep on single crocheting around the back posts of the previous row's double crochets until we get to the very end, where I'm going to place a single crochet at the top of the turning chain from the previous row. And you should be seeing it come together a little bit better like this. The more rows you do of this stitch pattern, the prettier it becomes because it becomes very cohesive and the pattern starts to really show itself. Let's do one more row of that double crochet repeat row together. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work. And this is obviously the wrong side of the work because you don't see any of the ridges, but we're going to be working on this side. So in the very first stitch, we're going to be placing 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, a double crochet into the stitch right next to that group. Now we're going to skip 1 and double crochet 8 times. Skip 1, 1, skip 1, 2, skip 1, 3, skip 1, 4, skip 1, 5, skip 1, 6, skip 1, 7, skip 1, 8. In the stitch immediately next to that 8th double crochet you placed, we're going to place 5 double crochets into that stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in the stitch next to that one, we're going to place another 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to place a double crochet in the stitch right after that group of 5 stitches. Now we're going to skip 1 double crochet 8 times. Skip 1, double crochet, 1. Skip 1, double crochet, 2. Skip 1, double crochet, 3. Skip 1, double crochet, 4. Skip 1, double crochet, 5. Skip 1, double crochet, 6. Skip 1, double crochet, 7. Skip 1, double crochet, 8. In the stitch right next to the one you just worked into, we're going to double crochet 5 times in that one stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5. In the next stitch, we're also going to double crochet 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the stitch right after that one, we're going to place 1 double crochet, and we're going to skip a stitch, double crochet into the following stitch until the end of the row. So skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, skip a stitch, double crochet into the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. And that is the end of another repeat row. And to see what that looks like, let's turn it around, and you see how it starts to come together really nicely. As you keep going, it really starts to take shape. This stitch pattern looks great in so many different yarn weights. This is done in a 4 yarn weight, which you can tell is slightly more substantial, and maybe the stitch definition looks a bit better in a thicker yarn. I thought about doing it in a cotton as well, but another day. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.